It started the second week after I got promoted. I had just moved into a new office on the third floor of our building. Marketing was on the second, HR on the first, and above us, floor 4 was one of the smaller tech departments. I never had a reason to go up there, and I rarely saw anyone from that team aside from the occasional elevator ride. The first time I noticed him was in the break room. He walked in while I was making coffee. Mid-40s, buttoned-up shirt, no tie. He smiled a little too long, like he was waiting for something. I smiled back and went back to scrolling on my phone. He didn't say anything, just stood behind me, quietly making his own drink. I remember how the silence felt loud. Eventually, he left without a word. A couple days later, I saw him again, this time waiting by the elevator when I left work. I was surprised to see him because his floor should have exited through the back stairwell. He smiled again. This time he spoke, said something like, "Rough day?" I nodded, not thinking much of it, and stepped into the elevator. He stepped in with me. I pressed 1. He didn't press anything, just stood there. It became a pattern. He started showing up more, always lingering near the kitchen or elevator, always staring just a second too long. I'd catch him watching me from the stairwell when I left for lunch. Once, I saw him parked in his car, facing the sidewalk, just sitting there while I crossed the street to my bus. It didn't feel like a coincidence anymore. One day, I stayed late. Everyone had gone home and I was wrapping up an overdue report. Around 8:30 p.m., I heard the soft ding of the elevator. It opened and no one came out. I froze, waited. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, deliberate. They stopped outside my office door. There's a long window beside my door that looks into the hallway. I didn't have the courage to look. I just sat there, heart pounding, and watched the shadow of feet shift slightly on the carpet outside. After a minute, they turned and walked away. I waited 20 minutes before grabbing my bag and practically running to the elevator. It was empty. The lobby was dark and my bus stop was deserted. I never felt more alone in my life. The next morning, I told HR everything. They didn't take it seriously, said I should keep a record and avoid unnecessary interaction. That was it. But the man knew. That same afternoon, I found a sticky note on my monitor. Just 3 words. "I like you." It wasn't signed, but I knew. I recognized his handwriting from something he once posted on the break room whiteboard, a dumb tech joke that nobody else laughed at. After that, I stopped going to the break room. I changed my commute, leaving 15 minutes later or earlier each day. I pretended not to see him when he watched me from the 4th floor landing. Then, one Friday, I came home to find a small envelope taped to my door. No address, just my name in the same handwriting. Inside was a photo of me, sitting at my desk, from behind, taken through the glass wall of my office. I hadn't even known the picture was taken. I didn't sleep that night. Monday, I quit. Sent in my notice by email, told them I had family issues and needed to move back home. I didn't tell them the real reason. I didn't want to give him any more reason to follow me. I packed everything I owned, left town, changed my number, and started over. New apartment, new job, new email. I haven't heard from him since, but some nights I still check the peephole in my front door before going to bed, just in case. Because now I know how easy it is for someone to watch you and how hard it is to prove that you're being watched. I live in a gated community just outside of the city. One of those places with fountains at the entrance, security cameras on every pole, and houses spaced out just enough to give the illusion of privacy. It's the kind of neighborhood where people assume nothing bad ever happens. I run a small but successful tech company, mostly remote, but I still go into the office twice a week. Usually stay late on those nights, catch up on everything when the place is quiet. It was around 9:15 when I left the office that night. The roads were mostly empty. I was halfway home, cruising along a quiet stretch of highway, when I noticed the black sedan behind me. tinted windows, no plates. I only noticed because it changed lanes when I did, matched my speed exactly. I chalked it up to coincidence, but it didn't turn off. It followed me onto the exit ramp, onto the smaller side roads. Even when I made a few random turns just to be sure, it stayed right there. I didn't want to overreact, but something felt wrong. I drove past my neighborhood entrance and kept going. Took a longer loop around a residential area and watched the sedan from my rear view mirror. Still there. I finally turned into a gas station. I figured pulling into a lit, public place would either scare them off or give me a chance to see who it was. The sedan kept driving. Relief hit me like a wave. I waited a few minutes before heading home. Pulled into my driveway, hit the button for the garage, and watched the door close behind me. But later that night, just as I was heading to bed, I got a notification on my phone. Motion detected in the driveway. I checked the footage. A man in a hoodie stood at the edge of my property, just outside the view of the streetlights. He stood there for nearly 5 minutes, staring at the house, never moved, never rang the bell, then walked away into the dark. I replayed the footage over and over, hoping it was a prank, but the unease stuck with me. The next night, it got worse. I stayed late again, this time with my assistant. We grabbed dinner afterward, and I left the restaurant around 10. When I got to my car, I saw something wedged under the windshield wiper. It was a note. Plain white paper, typed, not written. I know where you live. No signature, no context, just that. I went straight to the police the next morning. They sent a cruiser to do a few patrols in the neighborhood, but said there wasn't much they could do. No threat, no crime, just vague suspicion. That night, I checked every lock on every door, turned on every exterior light, sat in the living room with my dog and waited for that notification to come in. It didn't, not that night. But 2 days later, I came home and saw that the side gate, usually locked, was wide open. I checked the cameras. The footage was blank, static. Someone had cut the feed. I walked the property with a flashlight, heart pounding. Nothing was stolen, nothing was damaged, just an empty soda bottle in the bushes and a single muddy footprint on the back porch. That was enough. I hired a private security team the next morning. Put in real cameras, ones with offline backups, and motion sensors on every window. Even had someone park outside for a few nights to watch the place. Weeks went by with nothing. Then one night, just when I thought it was over, my phone lit up again. Motion in the backyard. This time, the camera feed was clear. It was him again. Same hoodie, same silence. But this time he wasn't alone. There were 2 others with him. One had a crowbar. They approached the back door quietly, like they'd done this before. But the moment they stepped into range, the lights flared on, the alarms screamed through the speakers, and the security team, who had been waiting, came running from the side yard. The men scattered. They caught one. Turns out he had been casing houses in high-end neighborhoods for weeks, following people home, tracking routines, waiting for the right moment. He told the police that my house was supposed to be easy, said the rich ones usually were. I don't stay there much anymore. I bought a second place across town, something smaller, less flashy. I still drive home late sometimes, still glance in the mirror more than I used to, still check the cameras before I go to sleep, because now I know that sometimes you don't need to be famous or careless to be followed. Sometimes all it takes is the wrong car behind you on the wrong night. It started with small things I barely noticed at first. A trash bag knocked over near my apartment door, my mailbox left open, footprints on the stairwell when it hadn't rained in days. I thought it was just the usual weirdness of living in a quiet building with paper-thin walls and shady neighbors. I had just moved to a new city for work. A one-bedroom apartment on the third floor of a small complex. Nothing fancy, but good enough. I didn't know anyone yet. My days were routine. Wake up, go to work, come home, make dinner, scroll my phone until I fell asleep. Then things escalated. One night, I came home and found the door to my apartment locked, but the deadbolt was set. I never used the deadbolt. I stood there for a second, heart pounding, trying to convince myself I must have done it by accident that morning. But I knew I hadn't. I always rushed out with a coffee in hand, barely locking the knob behind me. The next night, my toothbrush was slightly damp when I picked it up, like it had just been used. I told myself I must have splashed water on it while washing my face. The mind will do backflips to avoid accepting the obvious. A few days later, I started noticing someone sitting in a car across the street from my building. Same car, same spot. Every evening around the same time I got home from work. Tinted windows, engine running. They never got out. I told myself maybe they were waiting for someone, maybe they lived in the building next door. I told myself a lot of things. One morning, I found a sticky note on my windshield. It just said, "You should really lock your window at night." That was it. No name, no handwriting I recognized. I didn't sleep at all that night. I pushed my dresser in front of the window, slept on the couch with a kitchen knife under my pillow. I reported it to the police the next morning, but there wasn't much they could do. No threat, no crime, just a creepy note and a gut feeling. So I started locking everything, bought a camera for my front door, put a broomstick in the window track, changed the locks, but it didn't stop. One night around 2:30 a.m., I heard a click in my hallway. The kind of sound a door makes when it's opened slowly, carefully. I was frozen. I didn't even breathe. I grabbed the knife again and crept toward the sound. There was no one there. The door was still shut, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been standing just inches from me on the other side of that wall. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "Why don't you wave anymore?" I blocked the number immediately. Didn't reply, but I knew what it meant. I used to wave to people when I came home, just out of habit. A nod, a quick smile, a wave to someone sitting in a car or walking by. I stopped doing that after everything started. Someone had noticed, someone close. I moved out a few days later, packed what I could fit in my car and left the rest. Didn't leave a forwarding address. Didn't tell anyone except my parents. I never found out who it was. I still don't know how they got into my apartment, how long they'd been watching, or what they were planning. But sometimes, late at night, I still wake up to the sound of a doorknob turning.